Hi everyone, Marcos here. Super excited to be talking to you today about this simple of how you can use Agents 365 for a custom engine agent using the Agents 365 SDK to create an instance of your agents to run that locally as part of the development lifecycle. So I have this repo that was created on top of the existing agent framework for Python for the official samples for Agent 365, which I'm going to walk you through today. So the first thing I'm going to do is to git clone this repo and open that here in VS Code. And as you can see, this is a Python agent on top of Agent Framework. And I'm going to walk you through the process that you can do to run that in dev mode and in production mode, hosting locally for this scenario. So the first thing is that we have two env files in here. So one for dev and one for prod. So the first thing that you need to do is to copy that and then fill out just the value for the Azure OpenAI key for your Foundry deployment. And the next step that you need to do is to initialize the A365 config. So for that, I'm going to start a new terminal. And in here, run the A365 commands for this deployment. So the first one is A365 config init that will create a new config JSON file. So the first question is going to be to refer to an app ID available from the registration that has the permissions according to the description to run the CLI. I have this one previously configured. Okay, great. Now I need to set up the agent name. I'm going to use mgz demo Python agents. The working directory is this one. It automatically resolved the path. Now for the Azure, I'm not going to be hosting anything in Azure during this video, but we still need to pick up something. For the deployment, we'll choose no, as we will deploy it locally. And for the tunneling service, I'm going to be using EnergyRock. So I have already an address in here, running that locally. If you have a permanent address, even better. So I'm going to copy this one to then complete the URL in this format, ending /API/messages. This is the manager email according to the user signed. We can proceed to no and then save that locally. All right, so we have here the A365 config, and it's already set to the message endpoint, the new deployment, which is important for the production scenario later. Now the next step would be to provision a new token that will be used during dev mode. This token will not be executed on behalf of the agent, but of the authenticated user that will have access to the existing MCPs that are configured in here. By the way, the documentation also explains the available MCPs and how you can work to add and remove them, and also assign permissions. But the command would be to A365 develop get token, and it will authenticate through the Windows Account Manager. And once that's done, it will acquire a new token to be used in here, and it will automatically fill out the .env. That's why important to have that. So with that ready, we are ready to run the UV run Python main.py, which will initiate an environment and then start running the agent locally. All right, the agent just started, and in the meantime, you can, for this simple start, a new agents playground that will automatically connect to the 3978 port right here. And if I open the browser and refresh, it should already display the new start message. And I can ask any question related to the available MCPs. Just for the reference, I have configured for this demo the Team server, the mail tools, and the ME server. This is the directory search MCP. And if I ask a question like, could you please help me understand what's Lisa Taylor email address. So in this case, the agent will initialize. It will initialize the three MCPs. So it should execute three MCPs initialization in here, one for each one of the MCPs. And once it retrieves all of the available permissions for the MCPs, it will start executing the request on behalf, again, of the user to which the token was issued. So the three MCPs have been initialized, and you can see from the logs that it will display the parameters that were sent to each two calls for the MCPs. In this case, going to issue list users to search for a user whose name matches Lisa Taylor using the MCP. And once that's done, you can see that it will retrieve Lisa Taylor's email address. And I have also configured other MCPs in here, such as the email and the Microsoft Teams, which we're not going to test for this part, but feel free to explore that locally as well. So this was the first part of the demo scenario. The second one would be to deploy this to production to a tenant, okay? So in this case, I'm going to delete this .env as we won't be using that anymore. You can rename it to use that for other scenarios. And I'm going to rename the env.template, which is the production scenario, okay? So I'm going to copy that and rename it to .env as the script. The CLI will automatically fill out some values such as this one. And for this demo, the only thing that I'm going to do is, and feel free to modify this code, is to fill out the two deployments for Azure OpenAI. As I was running into some throttling limits for the tokens calls being used, I decided to load balance the request from these two. Okay. All right. Once that's done, we are ready to deploy the agent that has the following config to the tenant using this client ID, which is the Azure CLI, for the permissions, and feel free to modify that. Again, that will be hosted locally, pointing to this messaging endpoint, which is let me close this one, which is the ngrok running locally on my machine. So next step is to run the A365 setup all. In this case, as I'm not deploying, it will not be configuring anything from the Azure side of things. So it will just perform the blueprint and other scenarios. All right, once that's done, we can confirm that it has created all of the available settings, applied MCP and bought permissions, and created the blueprint. We can confirm that by going to the admin center and under Agent ID, under all agent identities, we can click on view agent blueprints. And our agent blueprint, which we has just created, should show up in here, which is this one, mzdemo Python agent blueprint. And you can see that it has currently no linked identities. And if we expand the blueprint access, it should have access to the MCP servers that we had configured, the mail, the directory search, and the Teams, which will be used for an instance to then perform actions with these permissions. So once that process is done, the next step is to, and you can view from the generated config, all of the generated values, and that it has automatically updated the client ID, secret, and tenant ID and scopes. By the way, I will delete this secret after this video, okay? With the proper values that refer to this blueprint that was configured. So the next step is to run A365 publish to then deploy this blueprint into our instance. So I'm gonna hit Y to then open the manifest in here. The agent should have already updated the values to refer to our application, okay? And you can modify that part, that is the application entry. And once comfortable with that, to refer to the outline and the color images, we can hit enter, and that should create a manifest which will be uploaded and have the permissions assigned to the configure tenant. All right, once that process is done, we can confirm from the Microsoft Admin Center that we should have here under agents, all agents, under registry, a new entry for the blueprint we had just created, okay? And if you click on that, I'm sorry, that's in Portuguese as well, but the main thing that we can do from here is to activate the blueprint. And you can do that in advance, but I think you can do that later as well. So in this case, I'm gonna activate that for every user in the tenant to be able to ask to request a new instance. I will choose a policy. We can configure new policies that will apply the licenses. In my case, this demo environment has no Teams license assigned, but I need to assign one separately. And once that process is done, another thing we need to do as well is to open the Teams developer portal. And that should open the blueprint we have just created. And we just need to move that to bot based and just paste the same blueprint ID that was configured. And if all is set as expected, we'll see a success message stating that. And once that process is done, users are ready to start requesting instances of this agent locally. Okay, so for that part, we need to open Microsoft Teams. And under Microsoft Teams, there should be a new entry soon once the agent is provisioned, and I can check that later. Here under apps, there's a section called agents for your team. And this section should show up the agent we have previously configured. In this case, it's already here. It's the MZ Python agent blueprint. And in this case, as I'm already activated the agent in advance, it will show create instance. Otherwise, it will show a message saying to request permissions, which an admin should approve to then allow you to create a new instance. So in this case, I'm gonna select to create a new instance. I will pick the name for that, and I will hit save. And in the meantime, we have here we are going to configure the agent to run locally in here, as we already have the permissions in place, okay? So that it will authenticate using the Agentic scenario, as well as, let's see if that will work. So let me run again. We run python.make.py. So I have already started the agent locally. As you can see, it's using the authentication for that process. And I'm going to request a new agent, and that should trigger a couple of lifecycle events during the provisioning process, which I'm going to try to display in here. As you can see, started here the lifecycle provisioning, and if we scroll down, it will start soon performing the request to handle the lifecycle notifications that were configured in here. Okay, so from my experience, going to send 2 notifications, and once the agent handles both, it will complete initializing the agent, and that should create a new user, which is an agentic user, in this case, in this tenant. So a new activity was sent in here. From my experience during the test, I was not able to click on it to review it, but a new user was created. We can confirm that by going back to the admin center and then clicking again on the blueprint. And you can see that there is a new instance configured in here. And if we click on details, we will see what is the agentic user which is in this case is the name that we had previously configured that was associated with this agent. So in this case, we can review here the UPN, the user, and other information and licenses. In my case, as this 8365 Frontier has no teams assigned, I will need to manually assign a teams license and then click again on Save Changes. But that probably won't be expected in other tenants. And in my case, as I was running without the Teams license, I noticed that it was not able to perform the Teams MCP activities prior to me restarting the agent. So that's why I'm stopping and restarting the agent again. Okay. So another way in which you can review this user is that inside the agent blueprints, if we click refresh now, you can see that there is a linked agent identity. In addition, if we go here to the agent IDs, which is this one, let me close this one and click on refresh. You can see that there is a new agent ID that was configured that has this identification. And this one is associated with a user. So as you can see, it shows the message that there is an associated agent user. If you click on that, it will redirect you to the exact user that is configured. And if we click on edit properties, we can modify the user picture and all of that. And once that's synced, it will be refreshed into the directory. In addition, as part of the user properties, you can review in here, I think it's under edit properties, that the user has automatically been assigned as a direct report of the manager, in this case, the emoji administrator. And if I select the user UPN from here, I'm going to copy that, return to Microsoft Teams. And if I click on chat to initialize a new chat and search for that, the user will show up in here. And from here, I can ask something as I did again. And could you please let me know what's Lisa Taylor email address? And once that's processing, it's going to, again, for the first request, and this is probably going to be run continuously, to initialize here the MCPs, okay? So it's going to start initializing the MCPs as done for the dev environment. And once that process is in place, it will start executing the request according to the system prompt that was configured in here. And you can modify that later according to your scenario, okay? So it will also display all of the parameters that are being used in here to perform each of the two calls and whether those succeeded or not. In my case, I'm using the list chat messages to retrieve the chat messages for the teams, list users for, in this case, for Lisa Taylor, and it should retrieve the user and then show that. And I could like also, could you please send to Lisa Taylor and myself, emoji administrator, a message with a nice quote about hope in a new Teams group chat. So I'm going to ask the agent to create a new Microsoft Teams group chat with my user and Lisa, and let's see how it will perform it. So as expected, it should again list the chat messages. It will not initialize again all of the requests to then start planning. And it will list users to understand my user. It will try to understand Lisa's user, and it should create a new chat. And if that chat succeeds, it should post a new message into this chat with the message, in this case, which was the quote about hope. And that should show up not just as a response, but here as a new chat that was created. And you can configure and interact with this user like any other user in the tenant according to the notifications that were configured. In addition, if I go to Outlook and I can also draft a new email for this user, I will send quote about happiness. Please reply to this email with a new quote about happiness and include Lisa Taylor in CC. So I'm going to send this message here. There are different notification types supported for the current state of this implementation of Agent 365. As you can see, the agent received uh, an email, and once that lands in here, it will start acting on that. So as you can see, the notification was sent to the agent, and it will start executing the activities. So as you can see, it is receiving an email, and it will again list users to try to identify who Lisa is from the directory, and then reply to all, include probably Lisa. And this is the draft message, which was sent successfully. And if we see in the same thread, you can see that a new reply was done. In this case, for some reason, the agent did not include Lisa, but we can also understand how to review the system prompts and determine how the agent should behave for each one of the activities that it's going to perform. I'm also not going to try in this demo, but you can review some proactive scenarios to use the MCPs for search, email, and Teams that could be used to not just react to an activity, but also initiate from an external process or activity an action that the agent can perform. Okay, and please review the current documentation for the Agent 365 to refer to updated documentation as well as any other scenarios that could be configured in here. Thanks so much for that, and have a good one. Bye bye.